All right, Mike, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. And yourself?
Good. Very well, very well. So I'm glad we got some time to sit down and chat a little bit. I kind of wanted to start off our little interview session here, a little talk session.
Sure.
And talk a little bit about you to start. So we're
Okay.
big about story here at Niall.
Sure.
We like to tell our story before we like to tell before we like for people to believe in our product, right?
Yeah.
So what I would like to know is a bit about what you did before Niall.
Sure. Yeah. So before now, I mean, really, I started my first business when I was 16, and it was an aftermarket auto accessories company. So right around the Fast and Furious craze,
Yeah.
I started a company to sell parts to all the kids that were at my school, and so I'd started that and grew it, and then went to college, went to KU and Rock Chalk,
Jayhawk.
which is natural, which is why we love that Bill Self's wearing our watch, because it's a KU thing. A lot of our investors are KU people, and so I went to KU. I finished in 2 years. I got my MBA in 1. Got in before the 2007 market crash. Worked in the work world, and then I started my own company. I started a company called Wavelength Media, doing web and mobile app development. So that allowed me to really develop out an expertise in marketing and design and business. So I've been spending, I'm 32 now, so half my life I've been spending running a company of some sort. And then Niall was really opportunity after I sold Wavelength, and I wanted to do something for the rest of my life. I really wanted to create something that I could chase for the rest of my life. I didn't like the name serial entrepreneur. I didn't like the idea of chasing ventures for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So it was a very diligent thought of I wanted to manufacture watches in America so I could mold. I grew up around manufacturing with my dad and what he created. And so, I've been around that. I've been exposed to it. I had an expertise in marketing and design, and, I loved watches. And my first watch was a Tag Heuer Professional. As many people got in the watch game because of Tag Heuer.
Yeah.
And so that really kind of sparked it. It was right time and right thing. That was about 5 years ago, and I went down a rabbit hole, never turned back.
Yeah, right on. So where does the name Niall come from?
Niall is the name of a 4th century Irish king that I'm a descendant of.
All right. So your royalty is what you're telling me?
No, I don't think so. I wouldn't call it that.
All right.
My male haplogroup is a long string that starts with R1, and then there's about an additional 10 characters that go into that, and the name O'Neill means of Niall. So, Niall was a king in a dynasty in Ireland, specifically Northern Ireland, that lasted for 1,000 years. And so, it's well documented and well shown, but it's me and 3 million other people. So he's a prolific man,
Sure.
You could say. But
Sure.
it's better than putting Mike Wilson on a dial, I think.
Yeah.
And that really is my name and my thought and my passion that I put on this watch. So
That's awesome. Great. So moving forward, so I know you're kind of a sneakerhead.
Yes.
And behind closed doors, we talk about sneaker culture pretty often. And recently, we've talked about incorporating that kind of sneaker culture, limited edition, collector mentality into the watch industry, right? So I'd love to hear a little bit more about, maybe let's start with what's your favorite sneaker, and then kind of how you're incorporating that into the watch
asking
industry.
someone what their favorite sneaker is was like asking me what's my favorite watch at Niall, right? It's a difficult thing, but I love Adidas. I've got probably say my 2 favorite sneakers are, I have a pair of Nike Air Jordan True Blues that I just picked up, and they're incredibly comfortable. They're classic. They got the retro look and feel. And then I really love Adidas, and I think what Adidas has done has actually impacted how we run our company.
Definitely.
And so, everything from I love all the Yeezy lines, not just because they are incredibly uniquely designed, but the Yeezy started a whole new generation for Adidas of technology that really allowed Adidas to be so innovative and move forward with such a unique strategy of limited production, exclusivity, technology to drive the speed of how you manufacture something.
Right.
And we've employed something very similar. We have a strategy of an acronym of how we build and run this company called Resin, and that involves everything from our rapid pace to exclusivity, and strategy and innovation and new. And so for us, our Resin strategy has very much been influenced by Adidas.
Sure.
But if you look at something like what they've done with the NMD lines, the ability to, rather than produce 3 million of a shoe, they'll produce 30 to 50,000 of a shoe, release it in an exclusive group of people, and let it sell out quickly.
Right.
And so when you see somebody walking down the street with a pair of Pharrell Human Races in red, it's almost like an instantaneous club.
Absolutely.
And we stumbled our way into that initially in October of last year when we created the limited edition World Series watch for Ned Yost, and we sold it out in 4 days. People do walk down the street and they look at each other and see the KC
Absolutely.
blue on, and they want to know what serial number they are.
Right.
And it really took us like a whole year to activate that strategy because we didn't know we had it and sitting in our hands. And so after seeing what Adidas has done and how intentionally they've done it, we deployed that in our own way, and it's been a game changer.
Yeah, and it's been cool, when I've been on the team here, seeing things like Black Swan, Moondrop, the limited edition runs that we're doing, that Ned Yost is involved with. It gets me excited about the different colorways, right?
Yes.
We're calling them colorways. So it's been a very cool thing. And one cool thing about being a smaller brand at the moment is that we're nimble, right? And so we're innovative. We're always pushing the envelope, and that's at the end of the day what's going to make us successful, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's what you're going to see is different about Niall than any other brand on the planet. Rolex produces 1 million, 1.5 million. It's an unknown number, but that's a suspected number. So you could put them at the top of the category for production volume in our industry. And bring it to the bottom of production volume. We produced our first year out the gate 150, and this year we'll produce somewhere between 350 and 500. Next year we're ramping up for over 1,000, and that's when the numbers really start to get critical. We'll jump from 1 to 5 and 5 to 20,000 very quickly, but even something like a Patek Philippe is potentially in the 100,000 or less ballpark, and so we want to maintain a certain size. But when you buy a Niall, you're not going to see every single person on the planet with it. It is really a unique taste. It's like buying a Koenigsegg, I think. Yeah. Like most people don't know who Koenigsegg, and if you don't, please look it up. It's an amazing brand. But compared to your Porsches and your Ferraris that are also very cool and exclusive, they're just not as unique or overly engineered like a Koenigsegg is.
Right.
And that's where people ask me if you could be a car brand, what would you be?
Right.
And I would say Koenigsegg in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
So. I think that's kind of what the unique part of this is. We produce in low production.
Yep.
It's a mixture of one, we're small. This is two, the way we're doing it. We don't have $1.5 billion a year to spend on equipment. So we are very strategic and thought out from how we create the Black Swan or the Moondrop or the upcoming Fieldhouse Blue. We produce them in very limited runs, and we're very thoughtful on it. I think that's what our customers appreciate.
And so everything around Niall here is we want people to feel like they're part of a club, right? They're a member of our family when they buy a Niall, and it almost gives us the ability with these different colorways and models, these mini runs, if you will, to have little families inside of that. Which is very cool.
It's cool. Jack Sock's got a Black Swan.
Right.
And jokingly, when we go out, he calls it Black Swan Gang.
Yeah.
Because everybody going out has a Black Swan. And
That's
then
right.
When it's almost funny. I text people with Black Swans when we're out in the Black Swan Gang. Which is cool because people are attaching to that. People who have super pandas like Bill Self and a bunch of our customers, it's an attachment that it's like, oh my God, that guy also has the same watch I do.
We're
so
almost
rather
equal feel.
Yeah, and it's like rather than saying, oh yeah, you got a Rolex and I got a Rolex, or you've got a Patek and I've got a Patek, or you got a Panerai and I got a Panerai. Like Panerai is a really good club, I think. You recognize it, but with Niall, it's even like a layer deeper.
Yep.
It's like a 9th layer of inception, right?
Right.
You're never coming back once you get down there. So it's exciting to have that level of attachment with our customers.
Yeah, definitely. So we have a bigger mission that we're all about here. So number one, we're about building a brand that has longevity and all these different things. But tell me more about the American watch industry, kind of what you saw at the beginning of the creation of Niall and what your end goal is to affect that here in America.
Sure. I mean, the American watch industry was something that was incredibly strong in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And then World War I and II came around, and the government itself started dictating that we needed to be making bombs and bullets. Right. And we've been doing it ever since.
Sure.
We're the largest producer of aerospace and military applications in the world. With that said, we're taking that exists heavily in Kansas City. So in Wichita, we've got Boeing, and you've got all these airplane manufacturers, and in Kansas City, you've got Honeywell and nuclear plants. And so you got this hub of precision manufacturing that existed kind of like what the world looked like after Switzerland bought up all American brands.
Right.
And so, we really just tapped into that like 5 years ago. We started talking to aerospace manufacturers about getting in the watch game. And so, what I'm proud to say is that Kansas City is the largest watchmaking infrastructure in America.
Right.
It's not big, but there are more companies in Kansas City producing parts for Niall and other brands, including the Swiss, than any other city in the United States. And it's a mixture of luck. It's like why Silicon Valley software became, why software is there is because you had a whole generation of hardware built there. So you had the companies and the money and these types of things. We have all the equipment and the know-how to make these things. And so we really just tapped into that. And so, there's 4 or 5 really great brands that I think exist in America now that are leading the charge to kind of this re-revolution. And one of the originals was RGM out of Mount Joy, very small city, but big impact with what they've done. They've been around for since the mid-90s. And so you got them and then Kobold. And Kobold was one of the pioneers, I believe, in the late 90s and early 2000s when they started. And then there's a bunch of others.
Sure.
And we're in that category. And so there's a couple original pioneers, but now we're in this spark where there's a bunch of brands coming up.
Right.
And that's exciting. And I think Niall's place and all of that is to, lead the way on how we manufacture, what does it mean to be an American brand and stuff like that. And so, when you sit at the front, you're going to get shots taken at you, and that's perfectly okay because that's
which has happened.
It's just what you do,
Yeah,
right? And I'm excited for it, and I'm passionate about this.
Yeah.
So there's no stopping or giving up.
Awesome. All right, Mike. Well, that's all I got for you today, but I appreciate it, and until next time, right?
Thanks, Jared.
All right, man.